If you've tuned into any sort of sports media throughout the past few months, then I'm sure you've seen a headline or two discussing the recent dip in NBA ratings. Compared to the previous few seasons, ratings are down 25% across ESPN, TNT, and ABC. Some attribute it to illegal streaming, while others claim it's the result of a dying product. But is it really that bad? I think there are a few factors that we need to take into consideration when looking at the numbers. The NBA season started back on October 22nd, and at that time, the MLB was featuring two of its most historic franchises in the World Series. Furthermore, the NFL and college football were in full swing. Historically, both of these two leagues have proven to generate more viewership than the NBA, so the data regarding this comparison is nothing new. On top of all of this, we were also in the midst of a presidential election. These external factors could have definitely played a pivotal role in the recent drop in viewership. But if we go back to the year 2016, we had a similar situation taking place. The Chicago Cubs won arguably the greatest World Series ever, football was captivating its audience with superstar talent, and once again we were in an election year. Yet, the NBA was drawing roughly 20% more views per game than it is today. So, what happened? I think there are a few key major problems the NBA has regarding their brand. While I do believe these issues are resolvable, the league needs to act fast if it wants to save its image. With all of this being said, let's dive into why the NBA has a massive marketing issue on their hands. While there is a notion behind today's players being soft, I want to more so focus on the referees. It seems like nowadays players are getting handed technicals and even thrown out of games for the smallest of reasons. Look at this clip right here, for example. Giannis is literally handed a technical foul for simply looking at Al Horford following a dunk. His face says it all. Or how about this play, where Jason Tatum gets teed up for clapping? Does this league simply not want players to show emotion anymore? This ref seems to think so, as he ejects Nikola Jokic for simply debating a non-foul call. No physical contact, no obscene gestures, just a disagreement. Imagine being a fan, spending your hard-earned money to watch this once-in-a-lifetime player, just for him to get thrown out for showing a little bit of competitive spirit. You know it's bad when the opposing team's fans are booing the decision. Oh, and this monstrosity doesn't stop at the athletes either, as just a few weeks ago, we had an instance where the refs literally called a technical foul on a ball boy for doing his job. These stoppages in play and ejections not only disrupt the flow of the game, but they also prevent the drama and competitive intensity that fans fiend for. Storylines and drama sell big time, but with the whistle-happy refs throwing out texts like Oprah, fans are becoming disinterested quickly, especially when it's the superstars that the league is punishing. I understand the league doesn't want another Malice at the Palace on their hands, but there's a way to prevent this without going on a whistleblowing power trip. Propositions such as added training seminars and an accountability system would help solve the situation. With this added training, games would become more accurately officiated. Referees would be able to see where common mistakes are made and adapt strategies to limit both missed calls and phantom fouls. I'm sure teams like the Memphis Grizzlies wouldn't be opposed to this in the slightest bit. I mean, a phantom timeout? I've never heard of this before in my life. On top of this, these seminars can add emphasis on technical calls and ejections. This would provide league officials with a better understanding of when to assign these punishments. Furthermore, an accountability system would heavily restrict official biases towards players. Punishments such as temporary suspensions and even fines for consistent poor performances would have officials second-guessing before letting their emotions get the best of them. The NBA has no problem with fining its players when they step out of line, so applying these penalties to officials shouldn't be an issue. Through both of these practices, the league would demonstrate to their fans and players that they genuinely care for the game. It would not only illustrate their integrity for the sport, but would also help keep their best product on the floor. The second reason behind the decline in viewership is the lack of rivalries. Think of any other sports league: NFL, college football, NHL, MLB, heck, even college hoops. They all have distinct and hyped up rivalries. Steelers, Ravens, Red Sox, Yankees, Ali versus Frazier. Whether people are a fan of these teams or not, they tune in to see these foes face off head-to-head. As I stated in my previous point, narratives and drama sell big time, and the NBA has lacked this for quite a while. Throughout the league history, you had rivalries like the Pistons versus Bulls, Lakers versus Spurs, and more recently with Cavs versus Warriors. But in today's NBA, we don't see anything like that. Even in recent history when we've had potential for rivalries, like matchups between the Celtics and Bucks and Warriors versus Grizzlies, injuries and off-the-court issues prevented anything from really developing. For further proof, the NBA recently put on an event called Rivals Week, but most casual NBA fans weren't even aware this was going on. The lack of promotion and marketing for these games really illustrates this problem. The NBA didn't even know which matchups to highlight, and they are struggling massively from lack of rivalries. However, the root causes of why rivalries haven't been able to take shape is because of the constant moving of players. Whether through free agency or trading, players, especially superstars, are moving around now more than ever. Back then, players like Kobe, Duncan, Magic, and Bird stuck with their respective organizations for their entire careers. This generated personal rivalries and constant hyped-up matchups between two oppositions. Nowadays, it seems like every superstar plays for 4 to 5 teams throughout their entire tenure. It's hard to generate buzz and animosity surrounding two teams when the entire lineups are changed season after season. I do think the NBA has an opportunity to change this, especially with the younger generation. Last year, we had playoff matchups between the Thunder and Mavericks as well as the Nuggets and Timberwolves. Both of these series came down to the wire and included some heated moments that even boiled over into this season. Given these teams' young superstar talent and the fact that they play in the same conference, we are bound to see these squads match up in the playoffs again. Add on to the fact that these teams are all built for championship contention, and you've got a recipe for something special. Additionally, we've already started to see personal bitterness amongst players, especially between Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama, and Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green. Through quotes and interviews, it is clear these players aren't the biggest fans of one another, and it shows on the court. If I were Adam Silver, I would do everything in my power to market these matchups and push these big game narratives. I'd create captivating video promos to build anticipation and slot these contests in national primetime slots. Furthermore, I'd take a page out of the NFL's book and allow for flex scheduling later in the year. Taking it a step further, I'd have the fans vote for which contests they'd like to see the most. This would boost fan engagement as well as draw an interest from other target audiences. Unlike leagues like the NFL, which are heavily based on team orientation, the NBA markets its brand on the actual players themselves. In fact, the NBA is really the only league I can think of where fans are more passionate about a certain player than an actual team. The league emphasizes highlighting its star players, and we've seen this throughout its history. In the 80s, it was Magic versus Bird, then Michael Jordan, then Kobe Bryant, all the way to the 2010s with LeBron. The NBA has relied on these big names to carry their ratings for decades, and right now they are running into a dilemma. The previous decade's top superstars and LeBron, Steph, and KD are still the most popular players in the league. While these stars are still operating at an elite level, their play has declined, and Father Time does remain undefeated. The league recognizes this too, and is frantically searching for a new face of the league. Players like Giannis and Jokic look promising to fill that spot after winning their respective championships, but haven't quite captivated audiences the way the NBA had hoped. Young and exciting hype prospects like Zion and Ja exist, but they are rarely seen on the floor. Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could all possibly inherit this title, but none have taken that next step. Even the best player on the previous championship team in Jason Tatum doesn't seem poised to fill these shoes. Not only did he not win the Finals MVP trophy, as that was awarded Jaylen Brown, but he barely played for Team USA this past Olympics. However, there is one player that will change this. I think there is massive hope with the arrival of Victor Wembanyama. Despite just entering the league in 2023, he has already set numerous records. He has taken the league by storm, and his freakishly alien-like structure has allowed him to do things we haven't seen any other player do in NBA history. He's a 7'4" center who can post up, score, rebound, defend, and even shoot the three at a decent rate. He has captivated fans globally, and there's no greater proof of this than their Paris matchup versus the Pacers. According to league sources, this was the most watched regular season NBA game ever on French television. Not only that, but NBA League Pass viewership was up 41% in France and 19% globally compared to last year's Paris game. Throughout social media, the matchup generated over 218 million views, making it the most watched global contest ever. It looks as if Victor is poised to become the face of the league, and it helps that he plays for a big market team in the San Antonio Spurs. Currently, the Spurs are scheduled to play on national TV a total of 21 times this year, which ranks 12th in the league. Based on the viewership statistics I just presented, I would put San Antonio on national TV as much as possible. I would also ensure that the Spurs play more games in France throughout the season, given Victor's nationality and the record set in their Paris game. Not only this, but I would also experiment with other teams playing overseas. Considering that basketball is becoming a global sport now more than ever, this would provide other countries' fans the opportunity to see their favorite athletes up close. The fourth reason behind the lower viewership is the brand of basketball being played, specifically the amount of three-pointers being taken. At the time of this recording, teams are averaging 37.5 three-point attempts per game. While I understand this is the current formula for winning basketball, it has become incredibly oversaturated. Teams are coming down the floor, jacking up threes, and failing to get back on defense. The priority has shifted from stopping the other team to simply outscoring them. Throughout NBA history, there have only been 21 teams that have averaged 40 or more three-pointers per game. 6 of those teams are from this current year, with the Celtics sitting at the top with almost 49 attempts per game. If this were to hold up, it would far and away be the NBA record, shattering the previous 45 attempts per game held by the 18-19 Rockets. To further add context on this, we have seen a multitude of three-point records being made this year. On opening night, the Boston Celtics tied the record for most threes made in a game with 29. In a December 15th matchup between the Mavs and Warriors, the two squads combined for a total of 95 threes attempted. And finally, in a matchup between the Chicago Bulls and Charlotte Hornets, both teams combined for a record-setting 75 missed three-pointers. If we do the math, that is an average of a missed three every 40 seconds. This means that basically every other possession resulted in a three-point brick. And if that wasn't enough, the two squads tied this atrocity of a record in their very next matchup. 2 games with a combined 150 missed threes. It's no wonder fans are getting bored of the game. In order to fix the current product being displayed to NBA fans, I would lengthen the top of the three-point line. This mark currently sits at 23.9 feet, and I would push this back to roughly 26 feet. Now, I would keep the corner three at the same length as there isn't much room on the side to begin with, but I believe pushing the top of the line back would impact the game for the better. This change would inherently make the three-point shot less valuable as team shooting percentages would begin to dip. It wouldn't completely erase the value of the three-pointer, but it would definitely make it so every team's focus isn't solely on the three. This would cause offenses to scheme their plays differently, and aspects such as the mid-range and driving would become far more prominent. By providing a more versatile style of ball, the tempo of these games would become much more unpredictable. This will lead to much more exciting and action-filled moments rather than the three-point barrage we've become accustomed to seeing. In addition, with more teams operating below the three-point line, there will be a heavier emphasis on defense. This in turn will lead to more physicality, which many hoop fans have been feeding for. The result? More dunks, more alley-oops, more blocks, more crafty finishes, etc. The more often these occur, the more highlights the NBA will have to supply to their audience. More highlights means more eyes on their product, and that in turn will lead to higher viewership and excitement further down the line. As an NBA superfan, I will always tune in to watch the best players in the world go at it. But even I feel the league doesn't hold the same entertainment value as it did just a few years ago. With these changes mentioned, I think the league could put itself in a tremendous position to bounce back. Let me know what adjustments you'd make down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for similar content.